आप तो जानते ही हैं कि जब चुनाव का समय निकट होता है तब आमतौर पर पूर्ण बजट नहीं रखा जाता है। हम भी उसी परंपरा का निर्वाह करते हुए पूर्ण बजट नई सरकार बनने के बाद आपके समक्ष लेकर के आएंगे।
Namaste, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. My name is Anand Narasimhan, and ladies and gentlemen, we're building up to the presentation of the interim budget, the sixth budget for Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Chunav ke pehle, largely they say it's an interim budget. What's the big deal? Ahead of this battle, Lok Sabha 2024, the Finance Mantri Nirmala Sitharaman ji will present Modi government's interim budget. This budget is expected to focus on maintaining essential services until the new government takes over. But the confidence exuded by Prime Minister Narendra Modi saying, Sarkar banne ke baad hum pesh karenge. That underlines the belief that PM and the leadership has in the people or the voters that they will bring them back to power. Meanwhile, days ahead of the budget, the government presented the economic review, which says that Bharat is quite confident of weathering the emerging disturbances. The report says that financial year 2024 is third successive year of 7% growth and that the public sector capital investment surged in 10 years. So what's in store in this interim budget? Will it be balanced? Will it keep fiscal prudence in mind or the upcoming polls? And will there be a certain level of populism and, more importantly, for the honest taxpayer, some tax sops? We'll have to wait and watch. Gautam Chikermane, VP ORF is with us. Nilesh Shah, Managing Director of Kotak Mutual Fund is with us, member of the PMEACs. And also Sunil Alag, Managing Director, SK Advisors Private Limited, and Sanju Verma, National Spokesperson of the BJP. Namaste and Jai Hind to everybody. Thank you so much for your time. My first question is to Nilesh Shah ji. Nilesh ji, if I may ask you, everything is looking fantastic. But kahin na kahin something is missing. What is missing? You get the feeling, no, when you got the perfect dish, everything is set. But yaar, kuch kam lag raha hai. In this case also, why does one get the sense Bharat's story is fantastic, but something is missing? What is missing?
I think if we have to look critically, two things are not as good as they should be. One, consumption at the bottom of pyramid. The growth is subdued over there, about 2% for last 2 years. And second, private capex, where because private sector is becoming more efficient and debottlenecking their capacity at much cheaper prices, the new capex cycle has not begun as much as it should have begun. There are exceptional sectors like power where the investment cycle is beginning, but bearing those exceptional sector, overall private sector is, let's say, on the back foot rather than on the front foot, like government's infrastructure. We are still the fastest growing major economy, but if we have to go from high single digit to double digit, then consumption at the bottom of pyramid and private sector capex will have to improve further from current level.
Gautam Chikermane ji, everybody is putting in money. Is the private sector still waiting and watching? Why?
I think it could be related to some form of uncertainty, which despite all signals to the contrary, suggest or they could be wary that the current government may not return and the momentum may not continue. Otherwise, I see no reason why, as Nilesh Shah just said, private sector investment should not come. The markets are there, they are rising, they are absorbing money. There is maybe consumption not at the bottom but at the top, and the middle end is doing quite well. The growth is consistent and that momentum is continuing. So all it could be is just one trigger before the floods begin. Also, I think FDI has been coming so far, but maybe yes, not to the extent that it ought to. Having said that, I think India is in a very comfortable place. We are just in sniffing distance of being the world's third largest economy and going on 5 trillion and maybe 7 before the decade. So I think all signals are pointing towards growth. I'm surprised that private sector has not yet initiated it. It could just be an electoral uncertainty.
No, but this electoral uncertainty lasts perennially because we are a system where some electoral uncertainty always happens. Sunil Alagji, I remember soon after 2019, 2020, soon after COVID, we continue to have this whole conversation. Why is the private sector still holding back? What is it that is missing?
No, when you talk about the private sector holding back, I don't see any of the large companies holding back. Not Levers, not any of those companies, not Britannia, not Levers, not Nestle. Nobody is holding back. Maybe it's the small scale industries which are holding back at the moment. And they have to, because everybody knows that, look, the moment you keep on your capex on the fact that you're doing infrastructure, it is going to lead to increase in the rural markets. And therefore, they're all preparing for it. But I don't see them holding back. What I would tend to say is that, look, it's the small scale industry which needs to be pushed in front, and the banking sector needs to come out and say, look, you can take all the loans you want, you can take all the money you want. That is what is holding them back. And therefore, what one needs to do is to get the lower end more up in the market than to talk about the top big companies.
Sanju Verma ji?
Yes.
What
Hi,
is it?
Anand.
Namaste. What can be expected, and is there, despite all the indicators, rupee is getting stronger in this month, inflation is under control, all numbers, everything is, growth is on track, but somewhere something seems to be missing. As an Aam Aadmi, tax ops for me, yes. Will there be some relief at all? We'll have to see. The new tax regime, will it be enforced from the 1st of April? Then where do I save tax? If I'm being encouraged to spend, why am I being taxed to the level that I'm being taxed? That's something which the middle class always asks, because they are the honest taxpayers and they always get taxed more outside of the others. But from a larger point of view, is the private sector really holding back? Why should there be any electoral uncertainty if the Prime Minister exudes the kind of confidence that he's exuded like never before?
Okay, Anand, I heard everybody, and I have a couple of points to make. First and foremost, the fact of the matter remains that the union government, the Modi government in this case, has done all the heavy lifting. And if you look at the September quarter GDP numbers, that is amply evident. The gross fixed capital formation, which is close to 30% of GDP, a large part of the contribution has come in from the government. And that is precisely the reason that, Nilesh Shah mentioned that private capex needs to sort of get its act together. I'll say a couple of things here. First and foremost, I think the good thing is that the annual FDI inflow into the country has been $65 billion or thereabouts, which means that in the last 9.5 odd years, we've gotten $585 billion plus. Point number one. Point number two, as we head into the budget, let's not forget that we may not meet the fiscal deficit target of 5.9%, which was projected last year by the Union Finance Minister. We may end at 6.2 or 6.3%, which is pretty good going given that we are coming out of two black swan events, the COVID pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The third important point is that for the first time in the longest time, the direct tax to GDP ratio is 6.1% and the overall tax to GDP ratio is about 11.7%, which means that the government has that excess leeway and maneuverability and the ability, and of course the willingness is there to spend. The fourth and most important point is where I slightly differ from the other August panelists. Does private sector capex need to move up substantially? Of course, yes. But ever since that historic day on the 9th or 10th of September 2019, I think if you look at then and now, there has been an incremental capex from the private sector to the tune of 5.34 lakh crore. And the September 2019 date I'm talking of is when the union government, the Modi government in this case, took a historic decision to reduce corporate tax rate from 30 to 22% for existing companies, and for new companies, it said that the tax rate, will be barely 15%, 15%. I think this kind of tax concession across the board to India Inc. speaks volumes about the fact that the government wants private sector participation, and while the government has been doing the weightlifting, please, just 10 seconds. I was looking at some numbers. The corporate capex to GDP ratio currently in India is about 2.7%, whereas the government capex to GDP ratio is in excess of 3.3%. Now imagine if the corporate capex to GDP ratio moves up from 2.5 or 2.7% to 3.2 or 3.5%, even a 50 basis point rise in the corporate capex by India Inc. That means a couple of lakh crores, which is what we are talking of. So it has not happened in the same magnitude that one would have wished for, given the magnanimity with which corporate tax rates were cut. But there has been an incremental capex. The more the merrier
So
in this case.
that's where the question is: what's holding the private sector back? Why are they holding back, despite perhaps the most settled thought process here that it's going to be a clear mandate? Is it only electoral uncertainty, Nilesh ji, or is there something more? Plus, is there more money in the hands of the common person today to be able to go ahead and dispense and increase consumerism within the system? Are we seeing, or are you looking at, so I'm asking in terms of internal factors, how much are the external factors also going to impact us and this budget?
So Anand, there are multiple reasons why corporate capex is not as high as we want it to be. And mind you, if corporate capex goes up, our growth rate could touch even their levels. One, there is a massive technological disruption coming. 3D printing, machine learning, artificial intelligence. And that is also keeping some corporate investments on hold because they want to see what technology will do to their business. Second, a lot of Indian corporates have now become productive. For example, earlier the time taken to travel from Chennai to Delhi was X. Today, thanks to the highways and removal of octroi, it has come. The efficiency resulting into logistics and also debottlenecking of plant has improved their capacity. Capacity utilization is hovering around 75% despite increase in production, and hence new capacity is not coming. Third, there was a time when under textile upgradation fund, you could gold plate your plant and take out money and create NPS for the banking system. Now those kind of easy loans are not available. There was a time in equity market where bad governance companies were also able to raise capital. Today at all-time high level of equity market, there are very few bad companies coming to raise capital. So effectively, there is no easy money left on table for bad entrepreneurs to show on paper that they are doing capex and create NPS for the banking system.
Correct.
Multiple things have come together to ensure that our investments to GDP ratio remains around 30% plus and minus. We need to move it to about 40%. That will ensure that we could aim for double-digit growth, which is what China was doing, let's say, 10 years back.
Right. But Gautam ji, how is it that the government can do it? And where can we see signs of this intent in the interim budget? The other aspect is technology. Is it also going to now create a huge amount of disguised unemployment? Is that a factor that you think will reflect in the budget tomorrow, or that's for later, whenever post-elections, when the new government is in place?
So while conceding to what Nilesh Shah is saying, I think there are enough tech entrepreneurs that are coming from India and becoming unicorns. I think that tech story is actually being propelled further and made stronger by Indian entrepreneurs themselves. As far as the existing manufacturing or services companies go, I think there is space for everybody. It's too early to say that technology will come and disrupt every business. In fact, technology may make it more efficient, may speed up processes, may bring in some kind of a greater eyesight on where and how products should be made, when they should be made. Technology will be an enabler. I think we saw this happen when the ATM machines came and people said banking is going to end and all that. None of that happened. They supported the banking. Banking increased. And I think India is at that stage where there is so much growth, where there is so much pent-up demand, when there is so much that entrepreneurial opportunities, that at some point this technology will become more of an enabler than a hurdle. That's my opinion. Also, if you just look at existing work in progress in terms of what's going on, just few minutes ago, the GST data has just come. So that's 1.72 lakh crore for the month of December.
December, yeah.
December or for the month of January. For January. So I think if GST collections are going, it does show that economic activity is going very well. While I concede that the capex needs to come up to mark, etc. But I think the economy is doing very well. And so, and technology has been around for quite some time, quite some years now. So there is always the sense of disruption that technology will do. But so far as numbers go in pure production, and GST is a marker because it's actual money paid out of enterprises and which goes to the exchequer. If GST numbers are rising, and they have been rising since 2017, I think we are on something. I will not discount the disruptive nature of technology, but I don't think Indian entrepreneurs are going to just lie down and let it take over. I think they will be driving this technology.
Right. Two issues quickly, gentlemen and the lady. We've got about 5-6 minutes on hand. One of the aspects, Sunil Alagji, is tax terrorism. Do you think that's been effectively addressed by the government, or is that still an issue? One. Secondly, if we need to be a Viksit Bharat and one of the most potent economies and powerful economies globally, then we need to also be a manufacturing hub, not just a technology and services hub. Has enough been done to make us a manufacturing hub?
See, look, I mean, when you talk about China, China ran without a democracy. Okay, that one person gave an instruction and the whole country followed it. And therefore, there's no comparison between China and India. Look, we cannot become a manufacturing hub which is equal to China, no matter how hard we try. Look, that's my view, my personal view. Therefore, becoming a manufacturing hub right now, we should pay attention to it. Look, we are paying, the government we are one of the highly taxed countries in the world.
Yes.
Not only does an individual pay income tax, he pays GST, he pays, if you add all the taxes he pays about 50 to 60% of his earned income right now. And on top of that, the government has actually put down that you cannot travel abroad, you up to 7 lakhs, this will be done. Look, I'm spending money after paying my taxes. How on earth am I paying further when TDS is being kept for the end and all that? The government has tried its best. And really the income tax which he talks about and everybody else talks about is actually only one part of the taxes that we pay. Look, the government has to put in more money between skilled labor. When most companies that I know, the large companies, when they are going into investments, they are talking about increasing their profits and productivity, and therefore it will come down. The unskilled labor which the government is spending on infrastructure, that will go up. Now, therefore, unemployment on how many people are going to be employed for skilled purpose in 1 year and how many people will be employed, the government is spending on infrastructure, no question in my mind. And they will continue to spend over the next 1 or 2 years. But how long can they carry on spending? That's another question.
Yes.
So they need to spend money in the budget on education, on skilling labor up. And therefore, today, if you go abroad, I mean, if you really go overseas and you will call the guy in for an electrician, he's not called an electrician, he's a plumber, he's invited into the house, given a cup of coffee because you can't deal with it. Our country, the attitude is, oh, electrician hai, so he's not doing anything. Therefore, the question is skilling people when you talk about the automobile industry, they are looking for people who will come into that question. The question is they do not find enough people who are skilled enough to handle automobile. Now, where do you get that? So therefore, they will spend on education. Increase expenditure on education. Tomorrow morning, let us see, because Mr. Modi does not wait for 1 year for the budget and doesn't do anything. Every 3 months he introduces something. So it's an ongoing process which comes in tomorrow. That's all that I would
the aspect of manufacturing, and are we even having the kind of skilling that is required for us to turn into a manufacturing hub is a great point that you've made, and it remains a concern along with this entire aspect of tax terrorism. Somebody was mentioning that we are one of the highest tax-paying nations overall, as individuals, but are we really getting the better or benefit for that? Is another aspect, and should there be some relief there? Okay, final 1.5 minutes, and that is to Sanju Verma ji.
Very humbly, I completely disagree with Sunil Alagh on this entire narrative about tax terrorism. And very quickly, for the benefit of your audience, I'll tell you what the Modi government has done in the last 9.5 years. We raised the basic exemption limit first from 2 to 2.5 lakh and then from 2.5 to 3 lakh. Double taxation of dividends was removed in 2020 when the Modi government decided to do away with the dividend distribution tax. This is the same government which increased the 80C tax deductible limit from 1 lakh to 1.5 lakh. This is the same Modi government which said that under Section 24B of the Income Tax Act, the tax deductible limit for rental income paid has been raised from 24,000 rupees to 60,000 rupees per annum. And this is the same Modi government which also just, bear with me, my 1.5 minutes are not over. Bear with me for 10 seconds. Earlier in the old tax regime, if you had an income of 7 lakh, you paid tax to the tune of 33,800 rupees. Now you pay zero tax. Earlier for an income of 8 lakh rupees,
my sincere apologies. It's not because I do not want to do the discussion, but we've got